Hi everyone, today let's quickly talk about retail sales, then we'll look at all of the data and the charts, as well as my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So retail sales cratered this month. Some of that is seasonality. It is expected to go down pretty substantially, but 0.8% is a big drop. We saw a 0.8 gain in December, and we were expecting an estimate of 0.3 for the drop. We ended up getting 0.8, so much weaker for retail sales for this month. And this could be a potential indicator for the US consumer going forward. We've seen a sharp decline after the holiday season. Again, some of that is seasonality. Retail sales is typically very strong during the holiday season, and we do see somewhat of a decline, but it's not typically as strong as the decline that we did see for January. And the question is that going to persist into the rest of the year, and how will that affect earnings in Q2 and Q3? Otherwise, getting into fear and greed, we did step up a little bit more here today, up to 76 from 73, so we're back into extreme greed, the same place we were a week ago. Markets continue to remain resilient. We did see strength step back into greed. Breadth still holding in greed, maybe a slight step up there, we'll see. And then put call ratio, extreme greed. We saw a decline in market volatility, the VIX getting back into a normal range, and then bonds both sitting in extreme greed. Very little changes from yesterday, except for the VIX moving a little bit lower. Moving over to seasonality, really no changes from yesterday's video. Generally flat, if not a little bit of a rally into the mid-month here, which is what we're seeing. And then don't forget, we do see a little bit of a decline into the end of the month. So generally flat from current levels for end of the month prices, just a little bit of oscillations based on that seasonality chart. And then same thesis here for the calendar, all bullish up until options expiration tomorrow. And then we'll see if this bearish week next week comes to fruition. Moving over to the earnings calendar, we did see some pretty strong beats. DoorDash was not one of them. They missed on the bottom line pretty heavily, but Trade Desk, massive beat here on the top line, met on earnings, put out strong guidance. They're up really strong. Also not listed here is Shake Shack. I heard their results were very strong as well. And then looking into tomorrow, pretty much nothing on the calendar. And then we really don't have anything until Tuesday of next week, where we do have a couple of heavy hitters here with Walmart, Home Depot, Realty Income, one of my favorite real estate companies, coming out on Tuesday of next week. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see those retail sales numbers. Expectation was 0.2, ended up getting minus 0.6 for core retail sales. Absolutely abysmal, not great at all. And then looking at the headline month over month numbers, got minus 0.8 there as well. Expected to be minus 0.2. So it was already expected to be negative, and it came in very negative. So we'll see how that affects markets going forward. Really had no impact today, so keep it in the back of your mind as we go into future earnings. I do think it's going to be relevant later. We did see Philly Fed manufacturing come in pretty hot, though, at 5.2. We were expected to see a minus 8 there, so pretty strong on the manufacturing numbers, but retail sales, like I said, not great. And then Fed balance sheet continues to stay basically flat. I think this is the second week in a row here where we've seen it either flat or up slightly. I bet that's helping out markets a little bit. We're not seeing that balance sheet continue to taper off. It had been moving lower pretty strongly, and now it's been hovering. And then moving over here to tomorrow, don't forget we do have PPI. Doesn't have a huge impact, but anything related to inflation is important. And the month over month numbers are considered highly impactful. So do keep that in mind. Expectation is 8.1, so that's a slight step up from the previous. And then you got the Michigan inflation numbers. Those are always interesting, as well as consumer sentiment. These have had a larger impact more recently, so continuing to watch those, but PPI is the big one for tomorrow. Moving over to Max Pain for tomorrow. Price got all the way up to 502. Really strong push. Max Pain still sitting at 481. Call wall 495. We'll see if that matters tomorrow. Put wall still at 490. I thought we'd get a finish between 490 and 495. But that seems a little bit less likely now with how strong of a move we got today. Total options really strong at 4.2 million, put call ratio at 2. So still lots of puts in the market, so that could be driving price a little bit higher. Like I said, I thought 495 might hold up. Now we have 501, 504 right in that range. Could be interesting. Maybe we get a finish between those two tomorrow. So that would be slightly bearish, just a point or two, maybe a 0.25% lower. We'll see how it pans out for tomorrow. And like I said, the week after this week is expected to be quite bearish. So we'll see how that plays out, and we'll take a look at those max pain charts on the Sunday video. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we did get a new high close, but not technically a new high. You can see that high was on 12 February. We got all the way up to 503.48. We didn't quite get there on the wick high, but you can see on the daily chart that is a new high close. Momentum still sluggish, RSI right at the SMA. So that's why I think this is still probably a topping pattern, could be distribution. Could take longer than just next week to consolidate and potentially dip. But if we get a follow through tomorrow up to the trend line, that would put your price target up at 505. Then we'll see what happens. You can see that level here, hit that trend line, pulled back. If we get the trend line again, 505, 506 could be interesting. Then we'll see if it can push through, or if we're just going to get another rejection or grinding price action. Obviously, there's lots of options once you get into that range, but that could be resistance. It's been resistance several times on this run. We've seen one pretty big pullback, a second pretty strong pullback on the back of those CPI numbers. And there's definitely divergence between the peaks here at the end of January and current price. So do keep that in mind, definitely divergence. And I still think this is weak going into next week. Moving over to the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is actually lagging a little bit, which is interesting. So all-time highs here for the NASDAQ are up around 438.85. The all-time high close would be a little bit lower at 437 or so. That would be the close on 9 February. We're not quite there yet, and we're definitely not testing those wicks. I do have a level here at 438. Did get above this trend line. We tested that yesterday, rejected, got above it pre-market, rejected again, and then broke above it here into the end of the session. Probably some of that is on the back of that trade desk earnings pushing the NASDAQ higher. So 438 is your next level coming off of the trend line. Momentum looks okay. RSI looks okay on the shorter time frames, but momentum on the daily chart, keep in mind that is still bearish momentum. RSI still below the SMA. Again, I still think this looks weak going into next week, but we're probably going to hold up into the options expiration tomorrow, potentially even test those wick highs at 438. Would be a pretty strong push to get to that level, but we're already up about $1 after hours on those earnings announcements. So keep in mind, it still looks strong on the shorter time frames, and you have to trade the price action that you have, but we can see pretty dramatic shifts after these large options expirations. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell had a massive day, 2.67%, gapped up, rallied, broke these levels, hit the next one here at 204.61, pulled back a little bit from that level. It's down a little bit after hours, so we'll see if it has any follow through there. Momentum still super bullish, RSI super bullish. So everything on the Russell looks good. Had a strong push, 1 day of dip on that CPI, hit the level, strong buying coming in. You didn't really see any volume on this move, which is a little bit concerning. And we are at these other highs going back to the end of December. So we'll see if we can get a break of that level. If we do, 208 definitely within reach. 212 would be my next level. So looks strong here on the Russell. And then on the Dow, you can see we did get a breakdown, held, retest of that trend line, and we're right there now. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, based on my thesis, probably sideways chop, hold the level, and then we see a bigger breakdown next week. Could go a little bit higher, maybe it wicks these highs just to generate some more buying pressure, and that's when big money starts to sell. We'll see how that plays out tomorrow and then going into next week. Moving over to Apple and Tesla. Apple was down a little bit more on the day, 0.16. But they did say the words AI and that they are building an AI competitor. So that could give Apple a little bit of a boost here. Continues to hold in the same range, still holding that 182.37 level. Tested it here, tested that lower trend line, and it ended up holding. It did close below this shorter term trend line, which is a little bit bearish. But if it breaks back above, holds, and pushes to 186, that could be quite bullish. And the AI catalyst is very real. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish here, but you did see a slight step up on volume. So potentially interesting here on Apple, nothing convincing yet. And then looking at Tesla, I have been talking about this one for a while, this consolidation. We were looking for that push. It closed above the level, went straight to the next one, broke the 21. This looks very strong now, so your next level is 214. Let's look at this on the 4-hour chart. Nothing really changing here. Got above all of the short-term EMAs, longer-term EMA sitting at 212. So right in that same region, right in the same zone is your price target, 212 to 214 going into tomorrow's session. Speaking of AI, let's see how the biggest AI players are doing. Microsoft down 0.72, still holding that 21 EMA. Again, looks like consolidation, momentum very bearish, RSI looking weak. Definitely interesting if this area breaks. Next level for me, 394.22. So that would be a pretty significant down move on Microsoft. Got the 55 EMA sitting at 386.96. Just below that trend line here as well. So looking like a little bit of weakness there on Microsoft. NVIDIA saw a down day as well, 1.68. It is up a little bit after hours. We'll see how that plays out. Momentum did fade a little bit. RSI broke below the SMA. So a couple of early indicators of some pullback potential. Not saying to do anything with NVIDIA to the downside. Absolutely a monster run. Continues to be a very strong mover. Just looks like a little bit of a pullback here today. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. Staples hit that level at 72.50 yesterday. Gapped higher and rallied. 0.65 to the upside. We'll see if it can get above the 9 EMA. Currently trading at 73.40. Definitely consolidation here. Momentum ticking towards bullish a little bit. Pretty interesting. And then you got discretionaries going much higher with that breakout on Tesla. Gapped higher, hit the level, pushed straight to the next one at 180.10. Said that was the next level. Sure enough, that's what we hit today. Down a little bit after hours. Above that, I got 185.36. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of resistance in this previous high at 181.75. So keep that in mind. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish here. Discretionary is gaining some strength into the end of today's session, and it does look strong to that next level as well. Moving over to transports and industrials, these continue to break higher. So transports 1% higher, gapped higher, rallied, almost got to my next level, 282.41. That is the all-time high here for transports. That's the wick high. We'll see if we can get a new all-time high here on transports. Continues to look very strong. Did hit overbought conditions just for a moment and then pulled back a little bit. Momentum still bullish, so everything looks good there. And then industrials, another day higher, 0.75, momentum bullish, RSI, again, hitting overbought conditions, pulling back a little bit. The trend is sitting a little higher at 119.16. We'll see if we can hit that tomorrow. But overall, both of these look very, very strong. Moving over to oil and gas and energy. Both of these broke much higher today as well. Oil and gas going 3.55% on the day. Very, very strong. Broke 135.07. Next level 140.88. Got above all the short-term EMAs as well as the 200 SMA on the daily chart. Very strong on both of these. Similarly on energy, 2.79%. 144 sitting at 86.17. My next level at 87.37. I liked it back in here. Now you got the breakout. Clearly looking at 87.37 as the next resistance. Didn't quite get there on this last push. I thought we would, but it does seem like we're going to get into that area on this push as well. Moving over to breadth on the 20 and the 50, you can see 20 hitting that 55 EMA. Critical point. Last time we touched it, we saw a massive pullback. We'll see if that happens again or if we get a break higher to that 86.50 level. And then once we get into that zone, that is typically where you consolidate and break down. So 1 or 2 more days of push on this in my expectation, or it could potentially break from this position. And then looking at the 50-day average, did get a nice follow through there as well. Pushed right to my next level, 62.25, ended up closing just barely below it. Didn't hit the 21, so that's a little bit concerning. You did get a strong break above the SMA, so that could be interesting as well. If you get follow through on these indicators, that would push you up to that 77.46 level at the 55 EMA, and that would definitely take a couple of days to get there, so that could give you a little bit more bullishness over the next week or two, and really that's the only chart that's saying that we could see more bullishness in my opinion. Moving over to yields, we did see a big wick to the downside on both of these, held the trend line here on the 2-year, was basically flat on the day. 10-year was a little bit more bearish, but still hit that 9 EMA, hit the trend line and closed above it. So to me, this looks like a down test, and this could be your swing here. So we had a strong day on Tuesday with the CPI data. Slight pullback, looks like a hold here, and then a potential push higher. If that follows through, that's going to be quite bearish for equities in my opinion. Moving over to the dollar, this was pretty unexpected for me. Once the short-term downtrend broke here at the 6 to 7 o'clock candle break, then it moved much, much lower. Ended up getting right to the top of these consolidations. You can see it here on the hourly chart. Ended up holding that level, so we'll see if it can hold that and move higher, but it is below the 9 EMA just by a little bit on the daily chart. That's at 104.31, and we're at 401.27. Got the 144 EMA sitting there still at 104.10. That level was the one that was holding here previously, so Still could hold, but this looks a lot more bearish now. If these levels continue to break, you got 103.64 down here. And if we see a move like that, that could be quite bullish for equities. Moving over to JNK and TLT, both of these went a little bit higher on the day with yields continuing to go lower. JNK right back into the middle of this range, right at the highly traded zone. Nothing significant really. I would expect it to reject from here. If it doesn't, then you would see a push to 94.82. And then I have a short-term level here at 95.36. If we see follow through like that, that would be bullish for equities. I don't really expect that to happen, but it could. And then looking at TLT, did get a gap up, hit the trend line and sold off a little bit. Momentum ticking towards bullish a little bit, which is interesting. First step towards bullish that we've seen in a few days. Did get back above 92.82. Back above the 144 EMA sitting at 92.92. So pretty interesting there. Again, I still expect this to break lower and expect yields to go higher, but a couple of indicators showing a little bit of strength in the short term on TLT. Moving over to the VIX, we did see another down day as equities were going higher, but it's not nearly as bearish as I would have expected on the VIX. It's still holding up around that 14 level, still holding up above this trend line. Let's go ahead and extend that out. Currently sitting right in that 1387 area, still holding up. Momentum did tick bearish, and RSI is sitting on the SMA. But critical point here, again, you would expect one more day of sideways price action based on my thesis. I still think it's going to hold this area and then spike higher next week, and that thesis is still intact. So keep that in mind here, still holding a higher low. And if that holds tomorrow, then next week I would expect to push up to that 1850 area. Moving over to my accounts, I did roll out my IWM position out to 194. And even with that roll, it's already in a small loser. IWM was on a burner today. Rolled out for $13.50. That would put my max profit here at $207.50 for 2 months from now. So that would give me another $3 of potential upside on that position. So being patient here, and obviously that's as far out as I would go on the IWM. So definitely would have to be patient, wait for that next option to open up, which would take a while. So locked into the most bullish I can go on the IWM. I still think we could see pullbacks from that most recent wick high, which we have not tested yet. And then looking at the TQQQs, I didn't change anything on the day. Still holding these 53 calls, still lots of loss on that. My max profit there, like I mentioned yesterday, is still sitting at 58.37, so we're about 70 cents higher than that already, and this is for 36 days from now. So just being patient. I could absolutely roll this out another week if I wanted to, but like I said, I am concerned about next week, so we'll see how that plays out going into tomorrow's session and then potentially next week. We'll see if I roll out tomorrow or not, and that would just raise up my strike and raise up my stops on this position. And then I still have the 57 call for my 100 shares here in my Roth account. Max profit for that position is 59.84, so doing just fine there. And then I do have a 54.50 put. I'll probably take that off tomorrow as I do expect more downside. I'm already at $100 profit with only 45 cents left here, so everything's still looking good. Somehow, supposedly, I was down $300 even though I held all of the same positions and everything was bullish. Kind of weird on the accounting with Tasty Trade, but overall still bullish going into tomorrow's session. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the charts or the retail sales. I'm honestly really surprised we did not see any reaction to that and markets just continued higher like it didn't happen. But what do you think? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.